It's been a crazy week, hasn't it? As we look back on the past week to 10 days and all that has unfolded after the tragic death of George Floyd, an act of injustice against his life, and then the protests and the riots and the violence and just the growing division in our country, it's enough to just cry out to the Lord. What is going on? But as we cry out, we do not cry out as ones without hope. We cry out knowing that the Lord is sovereign. And just as we have been turning to Him to look to see how He would lead us through the new normal of COVID-19, we now realize we simply need to add to that new normal of COVID-19 this new normal of taking a good, long, hard look at the deep and ugly root of racism in our country. We are adding to the virus of COVID-19 the virus of racism, which we need to look at. We cannot turn our eyes away from. But we look with hope because we know that God is sovereign. Just as I said at the start of this sermon series in Acts, that I had no intention of being in Acts this year, but with all that had unfolded with COVID-19, I just knew that the Lord was leading us back to our roots to see how the early church would respond to the new normal of life in Christ, the life in light of the resurrection. And so we needed to look at them to see how God would be calling us in light of the new normal of COVID-19, and we still need to do that, and we need to also look at how God is leading us in light of the new normal as we look at racism in our country. As we look at Acts, we're going to see in the weeks ahead that racial division was something the early church faced right off. The early Jewish Christians had to wrestle with the reality that the good news of the gospel wasn't just good news for them as Jews. It was good news for all nations, for the Gentiles as well, for the unclean Gentiles, as many Jewish Christians thought. And they had to open wide their arms and embrace others from other races, other colors, and say, these are my brothers, these are my sisters. This is a word for us today as the church, simply Trinity Church, as the church in America, as the church around the world. We need to continually be opening wide our arms to brothers and sisters, to people of all races, recognizing that all are made in the image of God, and the good news of the gospel is good news for all peoples. We're going to look at this as we move through Acts, as the Lord has led us into Acts, not by my expectations, not by my planning, but by His sovereign hand. I thank Him for His sovereign hand over us. I thank Him for His sovereign hand over us, again, just simply as Trinity Church, for the way that He has led us as elders to form the group of elders that we currently have. Last night we had our last elders meeting, which included Todd Guile and Henry Koldyke. Todd and Henry will be stepping down as elders at the end of this month as their 3-year term comes to an end. And I thank God for them. I thank God for His leading, for the confirmation of the church in voting those two men into leadership 3 years ago, and for the way that we have been able to lead with them, with Kevin Horter Richardson and John Haynes over the past several years. Rejoice with me in God's sovereign leading for those two men to join us. I thank God for His sovereign leading in the children's ministry team. I mentioned several weeks ago that Becky Balch stepped down as children's ministry team coordinator. And I thank God for Heather Canestrasi and Colette Hildreth, that they have stepped up in leadership, that now they have been joined by Rob Johnson and Deborah Horner Richardson. We have truly moved from strength to strength. We mourn the loss of Becky, but we see God leading in ways that add even more strength so that we can minister well to our children and to our families. We have plans to offer our families devotionals so that the families can grow closer together. Offer our kids devotionals so they can learn to walk with the Lord in their lives. And books, picture books for the little kids and chapter books for the older kids, so that all of our children, all of our families can continue to grow in their relationship with the Lord. Rejoice with me, even in these challenging times, that God is sovereign. He has his hand on our lives. He is leading us in ways that we don't even realize at this time. And may we keep our eyes fixed on Christ. May we be grounded in his word and seeking ways to serve and make him known, to work for justice, to work for reconciliation, to work in acts of service, so that this world would know that Jesus Christ is the way, the only way by which man and women can be saved. I look forward to worshiping together this coming Sunday. It's Communion Sunday, so we will once again come together around the Lord's table. I love you. I pray for you, and look forward to being together on Sunday.